Hello, this is Sonia from The Pretty Stitch, and today we are going to get started on this mitten project. So I'm going to use two different colors from my stash. So I have some red worsted weight here, and I'm going to use this multicolored yarn. To me it kind of reminds me of like clown colors, but I actually think it's kind of pretty. So I think that, you know, those two will look really nice together. Oops, just dropped it. Technical difficulties. So for this project, it's going to be very similar to the Springfield fingerless gloves or mitts, but these are going to be mittens. So it's going to be very similar pattern. So it's going to be part of a collection. I already have a hat pattern of it, and the mitts, and now mittens, and I think I'll make a cowl too, because I just think it's a pretty stitch and it's pretty easy. I love easy stitches that, you know, really create a nice fabric. So you can make these in two different sizes. So I'm making mine in small because, you know, I have like baby hands here. And also I like my, you know, I think knitted mittens or crocheted mittens need to look closer to your hands, because if they're too big, to me they just look like oven mitts. Maybe not, maybe it's just me, but I don't want to look like I'm wearing oven mitts. So I want to look like I'm wearing mittens. And you can line these if you want to, it's completely up to you. These mittens are going to be made cuff up, so starting at your wrist and then working up to your fingers. So enough chit chat, let's get started. So we are going to chain 2, so I've already started with my G hook here, and we're going to work foundation single crochet. So if you've never done that, we chain 2. In your second chain from your hook, you insert your hook, you pull up your loop, so you have your 2 loops. Now normally with a regular single crochet you would yarn over, pull through both, but we're going to yarn over and just pull through 1 loop, then yarn over, pull through 2. So you have created 1 foundation single crochet. And I like foundation single crochet for cuffs because it is stretchy, a little bit more flexible and easier to, you know, put on and off, more comfortable. Alright, so we're going to work right here. If it looks like a chain, you're going to insert your hook right in there for your second one. Pull up your loop, so you have your 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So another way of looking at it, so you can see the chain right there, we're going to insert right in there, pull up our loop. You can just think of it as chaining 1. So you chain 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So I'm going to continue. You're going to want to work 28 foundation single crochets. So I'm going to work my 28 foundation single crochets, and I will meet you back at the end of this row. Okay, so here I have finished my 28 foundation single crochet, and as you can see it has some nice flexibility to it there. So now we are going to turn this into a circle, and these mittens are going to be made, as I said, cuff up, and they're going to be entirely made in the round. And there is no sewing, which is really great. And to make our circle, we won't join it with a slip stitch like we normally do. We are going to work in continuous rounds. Now I just want to say, doing it this way helps prevent a seam, but if you are changing colors, your colors are going to look staggered, and for some people that are very OCD, that would really bother them. It doesn't bother me. And also we have right-handed mittens and left-handed mittens, so I try to have that on the, you know, the wrong side. It would be on the palm side and you wouldn't see it. So if it really bugs you, then to switch colors you can join with a slip stitch, you know, like that, and, you know, change your color, chain 1, and then work your stitch. But I prefer a continuous round, and if you worked these all in one color, you know, you wouldn't even see it, but I do want to use 2 colors. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. So we are going to join this with a single crochet in the front loop. So here is our front loop, and there is our back loop. So with our front loop, we are working a single crochet. Now what you will want to do with this pattern, and if you made the mitts or the, let's say, fingerless gloves, you want to use stitch markers. So this is our last stitch because we are working in continuous rounds, and sometimes it's hard to keep track of you know, where your round ends, where it begins. So I have this, I can't find a scrap of yarn in the room I'm in, and I'm too lazy to go and get some. Isn't that terrible? I just found this guy. I don't even know, it's some kind of gold something. But it'll work as a stitch marker. Just like that. You could use actual stitch markers, you could use a safety pin, you know, whatever you have on hand. I'm cheap, and I'd probably lose, if I had a bunch of stitch markers, I'd probably lose them, to be honest. So this way is just probably best for me. More economical. Alright, so we've worked our first single crochet. Our next stitch is going to be single crochet again in the back loop. And you are going to continue this all the way around, so you're going to work front loop, single crochet, and back loop. So it just creates a little bit of an interesting pattern for the cuff. I mean, you certainly could work it all in regular single crochet, but I find that to be a little bit boring. So just like to mix it up a little bit, you know, like I said, with using basic stitches, but just, you know, mixing them up a little to create something interesting. At least I think it's interesting. Maybe you don't like it, and that's okay. We all like different things. So I'm going to continue this, working my front and back loops all the way around, and I will meet you back at the end of round 2. Okay, so I have finished round 2. So you are going to repeat round 2, working in the front and back loops all the way around for 4 more rounds, for a total of 6 rounds for the cuff, and then we'll get ready to work the hand part. So I'm going to continue. I've switched to a different color, and I am not joining, but again, as I said, if you don't like your colors to look staggered, then feel free to join with a slip stitch and then chain 1 and then work your single crochet. Okay, so now I have completed my 6 rounds of working my single crochet. So you can see what I mean by changing the colors, how the colors are staggered. I actually think on some projects it looks kind of cool, but you know, again, if it bothers you, just join with a slip stitch, chain 1, work in the same stitch, and that will avoid that. Now you will have a little bit of a seam, so you just have to, you know, I guess, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul, one of those things. Can't have all the nice things, right? But anyway, this won't even show. So now we're going to switch to our H hook. And I changed colors. So we are going to be working in the front and back loops again. So what you're going to want to have happen is you want to make sure that, and I should have said this earlier, and I apologize for that. Every time you make a stitch in the front loop, you want to have, when you work the next round, that same stitch also to be in the front loop. So you can see it easier on the back loops here. So here is a back loop right here, and then I worked in the back loop right again. So these 2 back loop stitches line up with each other. Same with these. These 2 were worked in the front loops. So you just want to make sure that, you know, every front loop stitch is worked in a front loop from the previous round, and every back loop stitch is worked in a back loop from the previous round. So now we are going to be working in extended single crochet. One of my favorite stitches. I just find it to be so versatile, especially in the round. I know some people hate it and think it's ugly, but I don't. I think it's really nice and it's really easy, and I'd rather make extended single crochet than single crochet. But they all have their place. Single crochet has its place. As we, you know, I said, we just made a whole bunch of them. Alright, so our first stitch, we are working in front loop with our larger size hook in extended single crochet. So if you've never made one before, insert your hook like you would working a single crochet. You're going to yarn over, pull up your loop. You have 2 loops. Yarn over, you're going to pull through a loop or chain 1. It's the same thing. We just created a chain. You're going to yarn over and pull through 2. So it's similar to working the foundation single crochet, except we're not going to be working right back in that stitch again. But it's the same principle. Alright, so the next stitch is extended single crochet in the back loop. So I chained 1 or pulled through my loop and pulled through both loops. So I've made 2, and I'm going to continue to do that. And for the next, for these 3 rounds, I'm sorry. So this is technically round 7. So 7, 8, and 9, you're just going to work even. So working 1 stitch in the back loop, 1 stitch in the front loop, oops, all the way around. So I will meet you back at the end of round 9. Okay, so I've just finished round 9, so now we're going to get ready for round 10. And round 10 is we're going to start working the thumb, and this is going to be the left mitten. So for the first 4 stitches, we're going to work in the pattern. So that means front loop, working our extended single crochet. And again, you can change colors wherever you like, or just make them all in one color. You can decide. I love working with colors, so I try to pop in colors wherever I can. Sometimes it doesn't look the best, so then I will make it all in one color, but a lot of projects I will incorporate color. So here I've worked my first 4 stitches in pattern, so front loop, back loop, front loop, back loop. So now we are in a front loop stitch, and we are going to pop in 2 extended single crochet right in that same stitch. So there's the first one, there is the second one. And then the next one is a back loop, so now you're going to continue in pattern. So this is the back loop. Now we're at a front loop stitch, so you're going to continue working front loop, back loop for the rest of round 10. So I will meet you back at the end of round 10. Okay, so I have just finished round 10. So after round 10 you will have a total of 29 stitches because we increased by 1. So now we are going to work on round 11. So again, the first 4 stitches are just even in pattern. So front loop, back loop, working our extended single crochet. And now we are at our 2 stitches that we made, and this is starting the thumb. So what you're going to do is in this first stitch you're going to work in both loops. You're going to work 2 extended single crochet in each of those 2 stitches. So then you'll have a total of 4. So we are increasing to make room for our thumb hole because we're making mittens. So there's 2, and now I'm going to work back loop in the next stitch and front loop, so we're just going to continue on in the pattern for round 11, and at the end of round 11 you will have a total of 31 stitches. Alright, so I have finished round 11, so now we're ready for round 12. So again, first 4 stitches we are working in our pattern front and back loop until we get to our thumb area. So now we are at our thumb area after this stitch here. So we have 4 stitches. So what you're going to be doing with the thumb is you always will be increasing in the first stitch of the thumb and the last stitch of the thumb. And then in between you're going to work even. And again, these are both loops. So this first stitch you're going to pop in 2 stitches because you want it to be increased evenly. And then the next 2 you're going to work even, so that means 1 stitch in each. So 1 extended single crochet in each of these guys. And now we'll be at our last stitch for this thumb, and you're going to pop in 2 stitches. So at the end of round 12 you're going to have a total of 33 stitches. So we started with 28, so now we're back at our pattern. So back loop, and then front loop, and then you just continue around. So I will meet you back at the end of round 12. Okay, so now we are at lucky round 13. So round 13, we're going to start out the same way, the first 4 stitches in pattern. If I can get my hook in the front loop there, not wanting to cooperate. There we go, front loop. Back loop for the first 4 stitches. My stitch marker is really starting to fall apart, I can see. So now we are at the thumb area. So as I said before, we're going to work the last 2 stitches, or the first stitch in the thumb area, and the last stitch you're going to work 2 stitches. So this guy we're going to pop in 2 stitches. And again, both loops, so you're going to work even and extended single crochet. So there's the first stitch, second stitch, third stitch, fourth stitch. Sorry, I bumped the camera. So this is technically stitch 6, but I'm going to say the 5th stitch here, but this is stitch 6 because we increased here. So this is stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then stitch 6. We are working 2 extended single crochet. And then you guessed it, back in the pattern of front and back loops. So after the end of round 13, you will have increased up to 35 stitches, so you'll have a total of 35. Okay, so now we are ready for round 14. So after round 13, you would have had increased up to 35 stitches, so now we're ready for round 14. And it's basically a repeat of round 13. So you're working in your, oops, I'm working not in my pattern. Why did I do back loops? Oops. Get it right. Okay. Front loop. And back loop. First 4 stitches. Okay, so now we are at our thumb area again. So we've increased up to 8 stitches. Now we're going to increase up to 10. So this first stitch here, you're going to work 2 extended single crochet. And then work even for the next 6 stitches. And now we're at our last stitch here. We're going to pop in those 2 extended single crochet in both loops. So if you can see it on camera, you can see it, you know, we're increasing there for our thumb. And now we're back to our pattern, working in back loop and front loop for the rest of round 14. And after round 14, you'll have a total of, whoops, yeah. I have to do that, I think, for every single project. The hook has to fly out. It just has to happen. So anyway, after the end of round 14, you should have a total of 37 stitches. Okay, so now we are ready for round 15. So as I said before, our last increase round, and then round 16, we're going to make the thumb hole. So keeping in the pattern, working in front loop, back loop for the first 4 stitches. And my stitch marker is really falling apart. I'm gonna have to find a different one. She's not gonna last for this pattern. Okay, so now we're back to our thumb. So as before, we're going to increase in the first 2, or I mean the first stitch, putting in 2 stitches. Don't want to confuse you there. And then in our next 8 stitches, we are going to work 1 stitch in each. And then we'll be at our last stitch. And we'll have increased up to 12 stitches for our thumb when it's all said and done. See, I just love extended single crochet just when it's worked flat in the round. I just think it's a nice fabric. But again, I've actually seen people online, they just say they hate this stitch. They think it's ugly. So, you know, to each their own. Alright, so here's our last stitch. Working 2 extended single crochet. And then we are going to continue in pattern for round 15. And so at the end of round 15, you'll have 39 stitches. And then we'll get ready for round 16 and creating our thumb hole. Okay, so I have finished round 15, and as you can see, I found a better stitch marker because that gold thing was falling apart. Gold string or whatever it was, I'm not even sure. Alright, so now we are going to get ready to actually make the thumb hole for round 16. So round 15 we have 39 stitches. So we're going to work our first 4 stitches like we've been in our pattern, our front and back loops of our extended single crochet. And then we will get to the thumb area. Okay, so what we're going to do is, this is the first stitch of the thumb area. So this is stitch 1, and this I believe stitch 12. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so that it is 12. Just want to make sure so we're all on the same page. So we're going to insert our hook in both loops in stitch 1 of our thumb area, and then also in stitch 12, and then it's going to create the thumb hole there. So I'll put my hook in there, and where are you, stitch 12? Right here. So just like that. So now you can see the thumb. We're going to work 1 extended single crochet. So now we have a thumb, and now we're just going to continue in our pattern. So we are in the back loop, and then we'll be back to the front loop and just continue working your front and back loops for the end of round 16. And then we will be back to 28 stitches, and we'll have our thumb hole for our left hand, our left thumb. So I'm going to continue working even for round 16. Okay, so we have finished round 16. I need to put my stitch marker back in there so I know where I am, and oops, there we are, looking through the camera like all right, so now round 17 and 18 we're going to be working even. So you're just going to work front and back loops all the way around. So you'll know our first 4 stitches like we've been doing, and then that stitch we worked for the thumb. So here is the stitch we worked for the thumb. So that will be our front loop. It was a little tight there, but we're going to make it work. And then we're back to the back loop. And just now we're back in the pattern where we were before. So we are just going to continue that. So I'm going to finish up my round 17, and then I'm going to work even for round 18, and then I will meet you back at the end of round 18. Okay, so I apologize. I told you to work even till round 18, which is correct, but actually you need to work even until round 21. So this is round 18, so we just need to work 3 more rounds in the pattern. So I will meet you back at the end of round 21, and then we will start with some decreasing to start, getting our little mitten shape there. So I'll meet you back at the end of round 21. Okay, so now I finished up round 21. So now we're going to get ready to do some more shaping for this mitten. So for round 22, you are going to work until you get to the last 3 stitches. So you're going to work 24, or maybe, 25 stitches, sorry. So you're going to work 25 stitches, and then we are going to work a decrease stitch. So I will meet you back until I'll meet you back when I've reached 25 stitches. Alright, so I have worked 25 stitches for round 21, and now, round 22. Get it right, so we worked 21 up to round 21, now we're on round 22. Goodness gracious, it's not that hard. Okay, so we have 3 stitches left, so we're going to turn all these into a decrease stitch because we need to keep in with the pattern. So how we're going to do that, the last stitch here is a back loop only. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick up a stitch in the back loop in the next 3 stitches. So we picked up one here, gonna pick up one there. See a hair, goodness, get out of there. And we're gonna pick up one there in our last stitch. So we have 4 loops on our hook. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through all 3 of those loops. So now we have 2 loops and we're going to continue with our stitch. So we're going to work our chain 1 and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 stitches, and we've completed our decrease. So at the end of round 22, you will have a total of 26 stitches. So that one decreased it by 2. So I'm going to want to get my stitch marker, pop her back in. So now we're going to be on round 23. So for round 23, you're going to work even. And then for round 24, you're going to do the same thing as we did for round 22. You're going to work until you get to your last 3 stitches, and then you're going to do that same decrease for round 20. So we finished round 22. 23, you're going to work even. 24, you're going to do the decrease. 25, you're going to work even. So I will meet you back at the end of round 25. Okay, so here we are at the end of round 24. I didn't think I was very clear with my last instructions, so I want to just make sure you guys know what you're doing. So we worked even for round 23, so now we're at 24. We're at our last 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to do that same decrease, and we're pulling up in the back loops because we want the last stitch to be a back loop stitch to keep with our front loop back loop pattern. So you're just going to pull up loops, pick up your loops in the back loop for the last 3 stitches, then yarn over, pull through all 3 of those, then work your chain 1, and then finish off the stitch. So at the end of round 24, you'll have 24 stitches. So then round 25, we're going to work even again, and then round 26, we're going to work another decrease, and then round 27, we're going to work even again, and then round 28, you're going to do another decrease. So I will meet you back at the end of round 28. Okay, so I'm almost done round 28. So I've got my last 3 stitches where I'm going to work the decrease. So popping my hook in that back loop. This one doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. So we are getting close to being done this part of the glove, or a mitten, sorry, not glove. So we're going to work that last decrease. So after round 28, you will have a total of 20 stitches. So for round 29, we are going to work even. So front loop, back loop for 20 stitches for round 29. And then we'll be ready for round 30. That will be our final round. And then we're going to close up this hole on top. Okay, so now I've finished round 29. So for round 30, this is our final round. We are going to work in regular single crochet in both loops, but we're going to be decreasing a little bit further. So our first stitch here, we're just working single crochet, second stitch, single crochet. So this will be a sequence of 4. Our next 2 stitches here, we're going to pop our hook in the front loop there, and then pop our hook in the front loop in the next stitch. So these next 2 stitches we're going to combine for the decrease or together stitch, and then we're going to yarn over, pull through both, and then yarn over, pull through the 2. So we just created a decrease. So we're going to do the same thing. So this stitch, 1, 2, and then stitches 3 and 4 we're going to work in the front loops, and the reason why is it just creates a neater look. I find that a regular single crochet together stitch can be a little bulky looking, and this kind of eliminates that. So that's why we're doing it. It has its place, but not in this pattern. So next 2 stitches, and we're doing a sequence of 4 because 4 goes into 20. And then this is, nope, not our last sequence yet. I believe one more sequence of 4. Yep, one more. So 1, 2, and then front loop, pull through, pull through. Okay, so after round 30 you have a total of 15 stitches. So now we are going to close this guy up. And so what you're going to want to do is, if you've made any of my hats bottom up, then you've seen this technique before. I think we'll only need 2 hooks, but maybe a third. We'll just have a third one on standby. So you do not have to use the same sized hook. You could use one size up, one size down, but have 2 or 3 on standby. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your hook in the next stitch, pull up a loop, and you want this first loop to be fairly snug on your hook. You don't want it to be loosey-goosey. And you're going to continue to pull up as many loops as you can fit on this hook. And this is a technique that I borrowed from knitting. Just creates, instead of sewing the whole closed, it creates a nicer, neater finish. So I am pulling up as many loops. Oops. Just move them out of the way, making racket. So maybe one more. Okay, so I've got all those loops on there. So now I'm going to grab another hook. And we're going to go into the very next stitch, which is right here. Insert your hook, grab your yarn, and then pull up a loop. So we're just going to pull up the rest of the loops. And if 2 is too difficult, then, you know, certainly feel free to grab a third hook, or even a 4th one if it's really, really tricky for you. So there is our last one on there. We are going to make it work. There we go. So now we have all of our loops on our hooks. Now we need to finish them off, and it's going to be a giant slip stitch. So you're going to draw through all of these loops, but you want to take your time and not rush through it, because if you mess up, then you need to start over, and who wants to do that? So I'm just pulling through. So we finished that one. So what you're going to do is put this loop on this hook. And get that hook out of the way. And then continue this loop here, pull through the rest of the loops. Then you're going to want to snip your yarn. I got my scissors all ready to go. And then pull her through. And now you've created a neater finish there. And what you can do, what I normally do, is I'll pop my hook inside, and let me do that off camera and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I have put my hook inside. This is the center of that hole that we made, and then I use my hook to grab the tail. So I'll just loop it through and pull that through. And then what you can do is you just put your hand in there, you grab the tail and just give it a good pull, and then it cinches everything closed, and then it looks very nice and neat and tidy. So now we just have to get ready to do the thumb, and then your mitten will be done. Okay, so now we are ready to work on the thumb. So we've completed this part, and these directions are the same for the left as well. So we are on the right mitten. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to attach your yarn somewhere in the back of the thumb. So this is the right. So we just want to attach it right here. We'll just do it right there. So I'm going to grab my yarn. Okay, so I have my yarn. I'm keeping with the pattern, my color scheme here. So I am going to attach my yarn. And we are going to work 12 extended single crochet around this thumb. So I'm chaining 1, and I'm going to work in both loops in the back of that thumb. So there's stitch 1. And you'll just want to go around. So here, stitch 2. And we'll work in continuous rounds for the thumb as well. So right in here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. I wish I have 3 more stitches. That tail keeps wanting to get in the way. 10. Stitch 11, and there is stitch 12. So I'm going to pop in my stitch marker just to mark that stitch. And what you're going to want to do for the next 2 rounds, you are going to work evenly. So we're just going to work around 12 stitches. So I will meet you back at the end of the 3rd round, and we'll get ready to finish up this glove here, or mitten. I don't know why I want to call it a glove. It's a mitten. Alright, so I finished up my 3rd round on the thumb here, working my extended single crochet, 12 stitches. And I've switched to my other color because I want to keep with my color scheme here. So what we're going to do next is we are going to work even, so extended single crochet all the way around until you get to the last 2 stitches, and then you will work a decreased stitch, and I will show you how to do that. So we've got 3 stitches going on. Stitch 4. We are almost done this mitten. It's always fun when you get to the end, you see the end in sight. It's encouraging. You feel accomplished. At least I do. Okay, so here I am at my last 2 stitches right here, these 2 guys. So we're going to work 1 decrease. So we'll go from 12 stitches to 11. So what you're going to want to do, you'll pick up front loop and front loop. And it just makes it look a little neater and tidier instead of a bulky stitch. So you'll pull through both of those loops, and then you'll yarn over, work your chain 1, yarn over, and you finished off that stitch. So you decreased by 1. So for round 5 of this thumb, you are going to work even. In round 6, you're going to work another decrease. So I am going to work even for round 5 here, and I will meet you back at the end of round 6 to work the other decrease. Okay, so now I am at the end of round 6. I have 2 more stitches to go. So we are going to work another decrease. So we're going to go from 11 stitches to 10. So we're doing the same thing. Front loop, yarn over, pull through those 2, and finish up the stitch by working your extended single crochet. And also doing it like that, it kind of makes it a little bit more invisible, so you don't see the decreases, you know, if you do it a regular way. I mean, there's all different ways of decreasing. This is just a way that I like for working in the round. So I'm going to pop in my stitch. Actually, I should have changed to my other color. So let's see if we can do that. There we are. Let's grab that red. Okay, so now we have one more round. We're going to work even. So for round 7, you're going to work even 10 stitches. And then we are going to finish off this mitten by closing up our little hole that we have up here. And then after that, you'll weave in your ends if you need to block it, which I will block this gently, really by just cleaning it because this yarn has been sitting a while. And you know, sometimes things start to get a funky little odor, especially when it was sitting in a basement or an attic or in a closet for a while, just like clothes that have been sitting in a bin for a while. I don't know if it absorbs the plastic smell. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but anyway, we need to clean her. And this is that workhorse, you know, worsted weight acrylic yarn. I'm not even sure if it's, I think the red is really old yarn. The multicolored, I am not sure what brand it is, to be honest. I thought it was Simply Soft, but I don't think it is because it feels like a thicker weight. Simply Soft is between like a worsted and a DK to me, and this yarn feels a little bit thicker. Maybe it's a Red Heart, I have no idea. But it's cute, I think. I think it works well, you know, nice and bright for mittens. So what I'm going to do before we close the hole is I'm going to cut this guy to get it out of the way. And now we're going to do my little trick of closing up the hole. So I'm going to grab 2 more hooks. I don't know if I'll need 3. Sometimes when you're working in a smaller hole, you know, it's easier to work with more hooks. 2 might be enough. So we're gonna see what happens. So if you've made hats with me before, or you know, if you were following along and did this, it's the same principle. So we're going to pull up as many loops as we can and not work them off. So I will see how many I can get on here. So 2 hooks might work. Maybe we'll need 3. And as I said before, you can either use the same size hook or go down 1 or go up 1. So this one is a G, and it's really not going to affect the look of the pattern. Now if you wanted to use like a K hook, then you know that might affect it, but a G is going to be fine. Or if you wanted to use an I hook, because we were using the H to, sorry, bumping things. Be easier to do this off camera, but that's okay. The struggle is real, but we're going to do it. So I've got 1 more stitch, and yeah, 2 hooks are working fine. So I've got all my loops on my hook, right, just like that. I'm going to slide this hook out of the way. Less clutter, you know? So now we're going to draw through all of these loops. So it's like, think of it as a giant slip stitch all the way around. So as I said before, just take your time. Don't rush it. You can do 1 at a time, 2 at a time. You just don't want to mess up, or if you have splitty yarn, that can be a hassle too. So you just want to take your time because you don't want to have to start over. I've had to do that before, and it's annoying. Alright, so I have this loop. I'm going to slide it over there, and I want it to be a little bit more snug on my hook. And we're going to continue doing the same thing. Just working off all of those loops. So now I've worked off my loops. You'll pull up your hook, pull up your loop, I'm sorry. We're going to snip the yarn. Use some better scissors, jeez. Goodness me. Alright, so now you're just going to draw that through, pull her tight, and now you have a much neater finish. And as I said before, I will show you off camera. I will do this off camera and show you just to get rid of this tail. Okay, so I took my hook and I just went through the mitten. It was kind of hard to do it on camera, so I did it off camera, but you get the idea. I just poked it through that hole, and then what you can do is you'll just take this tail and loop it around, and you'll just slide that through. And then what you can do is go inside, or you can even turn it inside out and just grab. There we go. And then what I like to do is just give it a tug. I think I'm grabbing the wrong tail, grabbing the other color tail. So where on earth did it go? There it is. So you just give that a good tug. That's going to cinch up your hole. And there you go. Okay, so now we are ready to work the right mitten. So as you can see, I've already completed 9 rounds. So for the right mitten, so now we're ready for round 10 and we're going to do the thumb hole. So for the right mitten, you're going to work in pattern. So this is the front loop. And that's the back loop. And I really should put a stitch marker in my last stitch. So let me grab it. Just helps to keep track of my rounds. So there we go. Okay, so for round 10 for the right mitten, you're going to work 23 stitches in, yep, and that always has to happen at least a couple times during a pattern. I don't know why that is. Hook likes to fly out. Alright, so we're going to work 23 stitches working in pattern here, so in our front and back loops. So I'm going to work 23 stitches, and then when I get to stitch 24, I'll meet you back at the end of my 23 stitches. Okay, so I've now worked my 23 stitches in front and back loops, so now I'm at stitch 24. It's a back loop stitch, so in stitch 24 we're going to work 2 extended single crochet right in that same stitch. So it's just like the left mitten, except it's the opposite. And now we're going to go back in our pattern here, working in front and back loops to finish up round 10. So after round 10, you will have a total of 29 stitches. And it'll be just like the left-handed mitten. We're going to increase up to, I believe it's 39 stitches, I think. Alright, so I finished my last stitch. I'm going to pop out my stitch marker and put it right back in. Where is she? I know for some patterns they'll say just to reverse what you did, but I have trouble doing that, so I actually like to see it written out so I don't have to, it hurts my brain, I guess, to reverse things. The same thing with driving directions. I have trouble reversing. Alright, so let's start round 11. So we're going to work 23 stitches again in our front and back loops. And then we will get to our thumb area. So I will meet you back once I've reached my 23 stitches. Okay, so we're now at round 11. I've worked 23 stitches, so now we're at our thumb area right here. So now for the thumb area, we're going to work in both loops. So for this loop here, or this stitch, you're going to work 2 extended single crochet in that stitch, because we need to increase here, and we're going to work 2 I keep wanting to say foundation single crochet. It's extended single crochet. Get it right. So 2 extended single crochet in that stitch. And then we will go back to our pattern of working in the front loop here to finish up round 11. So after round 11, you will have a total of 31 stitches because we increased twice. And here is our last stitch, working in the back loop. So now we're going to do round 12. And round 12 will be the same thing. You're going to work your 23 stitches right in pattern in your front and back loops. And I highly encourage you to keep using your stitch marker for your last stitch. I mean, you can easily count if you wanted to. It's just if you get distracted or whatever, or you're watching a movie or TV and, you know, I've done it. I'll be like, oh, I don't need the stitch marker. And then I'm not paying attention and I, you know, more than halfway in my pattern, and then I look back and I see a mistake and then I have to take it apart. And so just avoid that and use the stitch marker. All right, so I will meet you back. Okay, so I finished stitch 23, so now we are back to the thumb area. So as you can see, we have 4 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and in our next stitch we're going to work in both loops. So for the next stitches we're going to work 2 extended single crochet on the ends, just like we did for the left-handed mitt, and then you're going to work even in the middle. So we're going to increase up to 6 stitches. So here is our first 2, working in both loops. And then this one you're going to work even. So that means 1 stitch in each stitch. So even in the next one. So now we're at our last stitch in our thumb area. So we're going to work 2 extended single crochet in that last stitch. And now we are back to our pattern to finish up round 12. Whoops, doesn't want to cooperate there. Come on. We're not doing regular single crochet. There we go. So I'm going to finish out this round. I'm going to switch to my other color, and you can do whatever color sequence you want or make it all in one color. I'll pop it in my stitch marker. So at the end of round 12 you will have a total of 33 stitches. Alright, so moving along for round 13, so we're going to do the same thing. You're going to work 23 stitches and then we'll be back to the thumb area. Okay, so we're still at round 13. I've worked my 23 stitches, so now we're at our thumb and you can start to see it. And we are going to work 2 extended single crochet on the ends of our thumb section again. So here's 2 on this side. And then the next 4 stitches you work even, so 1 stitch in each, and again this is both loops. And now we're at our last stitch for our thumb section here, so we're working our 2 extended single crochet in that stitch there. And now we are back to our pattern, working in pattern here, front and back loop. Okay, so we finished up round 13. At the end of round 13 you will have a total of 35 stitches. So now we're ready for round 14. So we're going to do the same thing, working front and back loops for 23 stitches, and then we'll be back to our thumb area. Okay, so we are at round 14 still. We worked our 23 stitches, so now we're at the thumb area. So you guessed it, we're going to work 2 stitches right at the end, or at the beginning of this thumb section, and then work 2 at the end. And then you will have increased up to a total of 10. So we're working even in these 6 stitches here in the middle. So now we are at our end stitch here, our last stitch of our thumb area. So we're going to pop in our 2 extended single crochet and finish up round 14. So for round 15 we've got one more round of increasing before we can actually create the thumb hole. And I like this way of doing it because there's no sewing involved, and it's, you know, you can work pretty seamlessly. I discovered the technique. I found it I was knitting something, and I kind of borrowed the same principle. I mean, I'm sure somebody else has done it in crochet, but it was revolutionary to me. Knitting and crochet, they can be friends. They can. One is not better than the other. Okay, so now we are going to work round 15, and as you guessed it, same thing. Work 23 stitches in pattern here, front and back loop, until you get to your thumb section. Alright, so now we're back to our thumb section. We've worked our 23 stitches. So we're going to work 2 stitches at the beginning of our thumb section in that first stitch there. And then in our next 8 stitches, you're going to work even. So 1 stitch in each. Okay, so I'm at my last stitch here. So I'm going to pop in my 2 stitches. And then I'm going to finish up this round by working in pattern there, front and back loop. And I believe it'll be time to switch to my other color. And I am carrying my colors, so I'm not cutting the yarn each time. Now if you were using a different color for each round, then yeah, you would want to cut a color each time, but I'm not doing that. Okay, so we have completed round 15. Okay, so at the end of round 15, you will have a total of 39 stitches. Now we're going to get ready for round 16, and we are going to turn this into a thumb hole. So you again are going to work your 23 stitches. You're probably getting sick of hearing that. 23, but that's how it works out. So I'm going to work my 23 stitches and then I will meet you back. Okay, so I've completed my 23 stitches for round 16. So now let's turn this into a thumb hole. So we are going to insert our hook in this stitch here. And so that's the first stitch that we made, and then we're going to insert it in the last stitch. Where are you? It's kind of hard to do this on the camera to finagle it, but it's a lot easier, you know, when you don't have a camera in front of you. And you just combine these 2 stitches, stitch them together, and just work 1 extended single crochet. Then you go, and we're back in our pattern, so front and back loop to finish up round 16. And then at the end of round 16, you'll be back to 28 stitches again. And now you have your thumb hole. Okay, so now we are ready for round 17. So for round 17 through 21, we are going to work even. So you're just going to work in your pattern of front and back loop all the way around. So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet you back at the end of round 21. So now we have 2 mittens. So what I need to do now is weave in all of my ends. And as I said before, just take this tail and you'll take your yarn needle, poke it through there, and you just close that guy up on both sides. Very simple. I hope you enjoyed this project, and thank you so much for watching.